so much. I'm so excited to be here, you guys. I know that some of you know who I am. Yeah, but I'm also well aware that maybe this is your first time seeing me. And if that's the case, then I'm pretty sure you're confused right now. This can't be the thing, right? It is good to be here. You know, I'm not from Salt Lake, but I look like I am. Yeah. Just another wobbly guy on the sidewalk. I'm a comedian. I made $8 walking over here. Thank you, by the way. I didn't spend it wisely. It's a fun time. I've been enjoying it. Somebody at my hotel ran up on me. He's like, "Hey, man, did I see you on TV?" I'm like, "Well, how am I supposed to know?" If you don't know, I don't know. And then tonight, I was coming into the show, somebody on the street, one of you guys, probably, just was all excited. He's like, "Hey, I came here just to see you." I'm like, "Well, I guess you can go home then." Mission accomplished, fella. I would like to mention I have cerebral palsy. I like to get that out of the way early in the show. I do talk about it a little bit. You know, there's a few reasons I talk about it. Number one is I've come to find if I don't mention it, after a little while, the audience is like, "Does he know?" That he has that? Another big reason is everything I talk about comes from the perspective of a disabled person, right? I mean, this is all that I've ever known. I guess I'll admit that early in my career, I tried to do my show from a Southern Belle point of view. Could never get that to play quite right, you know? Dear diary, haven't been right since Mr. Earl left. You guys are a fun crowd, man. Well, I could definitely say there's a few people still looking at me like, "What's after this? A midget juggler? Come on." Yeah, Fernando, and you're gonna love him. Yeah, he can juggle other midgets. So if you are one, you know, just be ready. The bar might not be as dry after this. Well, you're looking at me, that guy does not look dry at all, I'm telling you. It's clean comedy, you should take a shower first. Thank you, I do. I took 2 showers today. I just look dirty. I don't know what it is. No, people always ask me if this bracelet is one of those copper magnetic healing bracelets. I'm like, oh, does that thing work? Like, oh yeah, man, I was in a wheelchair last week. This thing's been kicking some butt for me, man, I'm telling you. I'm gonna put it on this arm next week. Actually, I better take it off soon, you know, I don't want to get too bitter. That might mess up my gig, you know. I have to tell corny white guy jokes. I don't know. Thank you, man. I gotta say, this has gotta be the best Make-A-Wish ever. Thanks for playing along. It's really... I'm sure you can all write this off. Yeah. It is fun, man. I love telling jokes. I do a lot of shows. I travel all over this beautiful country of ours, and I've been seeing more handicap accessible stuff going in everywhere. Yeah, it's great, really well needed. But I gotta tell you, as a physically disabled person, I kind of feel obligated to use that stuff. You know how awkward that is when I'm on a date and I have to use the ramp? You know? I'll be there in a minute, babe. This Walgreens is up on a hill. I don't know. Oh, honey, let me get the door for you. Who says chivalry is dead, huh? I'm sure glad we got cell phones. You know, we've come a long way. The flip phone was no good for me. That I missed a lot of calls with that one, you know. You gotta get an oyster sucker to open it. It's still better than when you had to write down your number and give it to a girl. Like, okay, let me get you my number. I gotta get this stack of paper here. 7, 2. 9 sheets later, like, here you go, baby, don't mix them up. I went to New York recently and I tried to hail a taxi and I caught a pigeon. Like, oh. Let me know when you're ready, man. I still don't think he's ready, man. I don't want to hurt nobody. I didn't even know I had the pitch until I was in the cab. Oh. It didn't make it. Oh, no. Tell me about the rabbits. It's weird being me, I gotta say. You know, since I live in like a dual world, like I could be walking down the street and somebody comes like, oh, can I get an autograph? I saw you on TV. And then like 2 steps later, like, get away from me, you drunk ass. Either way, I asked for $1. You know what they say, when one door closes, it locks behind you. So, just gotta go to the next house. Use a window if you have to. A lot of people don't know this about me, but for many years I was a member of the U.S. Paralympic national soccer team. Where were you guys at the games? Sure could have used those 30 claps. I know many of you maybe don't know what the Paralympics are, which is unfortunate because it's the 2nd largest sporting event on the planet. It's the Olympics for people with physical disabilities. Yeah, I mean, we're 2nd largest only to the able-bodied Olympics. Oh yeah, it must be tough running with 2 legs, huh? Nothing but punks to us. I love being on that team. It was an amazing experience, traveling the world. I got to go to the 2004 Paralympics in Athens, Greece. Again, thank you for that. Me and my teammates didn't have to get worry about getting tested for any performance-enhancing drug. We did not represent the country well. Sorry, everybody. I was just not good. We didn't do good at all. Well, we were playing against teams like Brazil and Russia, like teams that have a program that they live together all year round and practice twice a day. And We didn't do that. We lost to Russia 11-1. And the one was, they scored on themselves. They just got tired of shooting on our goalie. Just take some real shots. You know? And he saved a bunch of their shots, man. They're so good, man. I found out the coach don't like when you high-five the other team. When they're, oh, that was awesome, man. How'd you do that? Some of those players, though, were so good. Like the Russian team, I'm just on the field looking at them like, okay, well, there's nothing even wrong with that guy right there. I call BS number 5, man. We better get a neurologist out here. Then he run by, be like, oh man, his hands on backward. Okay. I got injured in one of the games in the Paralympics, and my coach had the nerve to put me on the disabled list. Shouldn't that somehow make me better? The 2 wrong cancels itself out or something. I don't know. I had a lot of fun with my teammates. It was just cool getting to hang out with other physically disabled dudes. You know, we've all been through some of the same stuff, and we just got really comfortable being disabled. We got so comfortable that, like, on trips, we came up with this game where we would see who could hold open their jacked up hand longer. Ready, go. Okay. Good game, good game. You get to hold the dead pigeon now. You guys remember from earlier? You guys remember? I do miss being on the Paralympic team. One thing I really miss is traveling with everybody. Because I gotta say, there's nothing more entertaining than watching 12 dudes with cerebral palsy get off an airplane in a row. Everybody in the terminal thinks there's some type of zombie invasion going on. He's the goalie. None of us really walk like that, you know. We just like messing around, you know. See how far through customs we can get. Last one tastes loses. You know, my whole life I've always had people kind of stare at me, and I thought it was because of my cerebral palsy. And then I went to the Paralympics, and then in the cafeteria, there's like 3,000 disabled people trying to get lunch. And then I went in there, and everybody's staring at me. I'm like, what is it? There's a guy over there eating with his foot. One thing I don't miss about being on the team is our coach used to make us all dress alike. You know, represent your country, which is great. That's awesome. I love representing our wonderful, beautiful country. But, you know, we're a bunch of crippled dudes trying not to stick out as it is, you know? Got us all wearing the same goofy tracksuit. All I'm saying, Coach, is just give us a chance. Just a chance. We got people walking by us like, oh, that's nice. They took them to the mall. Some of them got stuff. And if I say something that offends you, I really do apologize. That's not my intention. But if I do, just think of it this way. I just have really well-timed Tourette's. That's the great thing about having a disability. When you have one, you can have them all. Nobody's going to call you on that one, I'll tell you. Hey, Josh, you weren't blind yesterday. I'm today, buddy. Help me cross the street. And let's see how long we can hold this hand open. You guys remember from earlier? Yeah, I just had this happen to me again. I was at a restaurant with a bunch of friends, and the server went around the table and took everyone's order. And then when they got to me, they're like, and what will he have? My buddy was like, I'm guessing to talk with your manager. Free dinner. Now that I know that little trick, I'm walking in like a zombie invasion. Table for 9. Oh, you guys a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much. This is awesome. This is so great to be here. This is my second dry bar. Very exciting for me. I was worried I wasn't dry enough on the first one. We're gonna try it out again. So, I know some of you know who I am, but I'm also aware that some of you are just like, hey, a homeless guy got in here. I know a homeless guy when I see one, and you're right, I'm just sitting here to finish my art project. These are my hidey holes. I put treasures in there. You might not like my treasures. good to be here. You know, I live in Denver, Colorado, and I'm just happy to be away from my children. Love them dearly. I actually have 50% custody of both my kids, and if you know anything, you know that's a lot of custody. Hey, have you guys ever got divorced and then realized that maybe you just needed a sandwich? Whoopsie daisies, huh? Turns out I was just hungry. Moving on. Hey, hi. Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, I've been a comedian most of my adult life. So for the last 16 years, I've been doing 200 shows a year. And, and then COVID hit, and I became a homeschool teacher. So I was very ill prepared for that. Yeah, I'm a comic for a reason. Like, sorry guys, Daddy can't help you with your math homework, but if you need a good fart joke, I got you. Yeah, that quarantine, when that first hit, you know, that's brutal. I'm home with my 2 kids, just doing all these childhood activities, you know, playing board games and doing puzzles and crying. We still haven't finished our puzzle. We lost interest about hour 85. And then board games. I like playing board games, you know, Monopoly and everything. But I will definitely jack up a Monopoly game. I'm not the most delicate of peace movers, you know. You thought you had some houses. There's a palsy earthquake coming through. Whoa! Yeah, I have my kids move the pieces, and I regularly kick my son's butt in chess, and that's got to be pretty humiliating when you have to move yourself into check. He gets me back on the video games, though. Yeah, I'm sure I don't have to tell you, I'm not a gamer. My parents didn't even get me a system when I was a kid. They're like, you can go to your friend's house if you want to lose on the game, you know? Are those fighting games? My friends, they kick my butt every time. Well, like 98% of the time. Then occasionally the right hand would just do something amazing, and just every kid in the room is slack-jaw, like, we never seen that before. You put a glitch in the game. My kids, man. And, you know, I definitely deserve kids, you know? Someone to pass on my demented sense of humor to, you know? Well, I grew up with sisters. I'm the youngest of 4, and just give you a little taste of what I went through. When I was about 11, both of my older sisters convinced me that there was something wrong with me because I hadn't had my period yet. Don't encourage them. My oldest sister gave me a tampon. She's like, you might want to take this to school with you. And then my other sister's like, if it doesn't come in like a month, you should probably tell Mom. That's why I'm a comedian, okay? Also, when I was a kid, my mom told me if I went on a roller coaster, that my head would snap off. What kind of crappy parenting skills is that, man? I didn't go on a roller coaster. I was like 30. I wore 7 turtlenecks. Doing loop-de-loops and the tampon fell out. I don't know if this is dry enough. I feel like there's some moisture leaking in. I'm just trying to figure out, I think I need more purple. Sorry, I'm easily distracted. My kids. My daughter's almost 11, and she will not shut up. Like, seriously, this girl can talk about anything for hours. She'll tell me details of her day that I've already been an intricate part of. Like, yeah, I remember the chicken nuggets, I made them. Come on. My son is 13, and that's just, that's just a, dumb boy age, You don't know nothing at that point. I'm tempted to tell him about his period, but... Hey, both my kids speak Japanese pretty fluently, and their mom's Japanese. That would explain it. Did some time in a Japanese prison. Well, I think it's awesome that they speak Japanese. My family is very language-oriented. Like, my father speaks 13 languages. And even though he speaks all those languages, I'm pretty sure he was never able to communicate with my mom. He never learned Jackie. That's a tough language. Very tonal, So I think it's amazing my kids speak Japanese, but, that definitely makes me the odd man out. Kids come home and I'm just sitting there and they're just speaking Japanese. I'm just... Come on, guys, I know you're talking about me. Look, I know when you're doing this, you're talking about me. I don't need Rosetta Stone for that one. And then just tonight, okay, so I got here this afternoon. I was walking around, checking out the town. Very nice little town. But down where that little farmer's market is, earlier in the day, there was a guy with cerebral palsy there, which, that should be legal. And then I was there, but the thing is, he and I were heading in the same direction at about the same speed, but he was like 30 yards in front of me. And we walked like that for a little while, and then people started running up to me going, "You're a jerk for making fun of that guy." I'm just trying to buy a woven basket. I don't know. I followed that guy for a while. I was like, whatever. This is a nice way to view the town. And then he stopped and he started coming back. So I was like in the lead for a while. You know? Let him deal with it, you know. Like walking by, people go, oh, that guy's making fun of me. My kids, man. You know, this age that they're at is fine. I don't mind it, but I like babies. That was always my jam. Anywhere from like 1 month to just under 2, you know? It's a good baby age, you know? I didn't make a lot of people nervous, though, you know? People running up to me like, didn't everybody tell you not to shake a baby? Like, I'm just holding them. Don't tell me how to raise my kids. My kids are all very healthy and very tough, you know? You know about like baby-proof in your house? You put gates on the stairs. You put one at the bottom. Did you know you also need one at the top? If you don't put one at the top, the one at the bottom just acts as a strainer. Or a colander. Which maybe you didn't get the joke if I used the wrong word that you didn't know. Some people are raised with strainers, some colander. Just trying to hit the whole audience, you know? Like the balcony seems like colanders. You know, it's cool though, because you have a gate at the bottom of the stairs and a gate at the top of the stairs. We used to just keep the kids on the stairs. Just raising little mountain goats. It paid off too. We go up to the Rocky Mountains all the time. They just run up the mountainside. Like it's just so majestic. Beautiful specimens. I miss the stroller days, you know. I love pushing my kids around the neighborhood, showing them the world, you know. But the thing is, when you see me coming down the street pushing a stroller, when you look in there, you're expecting to see like a bucket of doorknobs or It's quite alarming when you see little Asian people. Where'd you get them, mister? I made them. Thank you. All right. This is a lot of moisture. Thank you. So, you know, having a disability, a lot of times people are like, you know, I just think it's so inspirational that you're just out in the world. You're so inspirational. And I'm like, well, thank you. That's really nice of you. But I got to tell you, I'm a little uninspired by you because there's nothing wrong with you and you ain't done anything. Now here's a tampon. Go on. I love telling jokes. Feels good to laugh, doesn't it? And you know, you guys have been such a great crowd. I actually brought you guys some gifts. I have a big stack of. You know, I figure I'm disabled. I could just make them. You know? Who am I to be hogging all these goodies? These placards are great too, not just for parking, but if you get pulled over, like, oh yeah, officer, I know I was speeding, but did I mention? Don't do that. Don't do that. Sorry, my lawyer said I had to say that twice. There's also a disclaimer on here. It says if you're dumb enough to use this as a real handicap placard, go for it. That's on you. And so on the way, I'll grab a couple. Yeah, I signed them, and that validates them. So. This thing, I'm telling you, man. It's my nocturnal arm. You know? Sun goes down, this thing got stuff to do. I'm also pretty sure it's a sign language interpreter. I think it's Japanese. I don't know. Maybe a little Jackie. You guys remember from earlier? I feel like some of you don't get sarcasm, man. This is a bad show for you. And I'm not being sarcastic. Thank you. I gotta say, over the years, you know, being disabled, definitely gotten a lot of material for that. Very lucky that I'm able to laugh at this stuff. Because, you know, I've definitely gone through some tough times. People can be real mean about it, and I guess I never understood why people were mean about disability. Because I really think people don't realize that the disabled community is the largest minority group on the planet. And it's, because the thing is they pile us all together. So if you're blind, get in the pile. If you're deaf, help the blind guy find the pile. If you got one leg, hop on. All right, I'll stop. That could be endless. Whenever anybody's being mean about it, what I think they don't realize is not only are we the largest minority group, but we're also the only minority group that you can join at any time. You're just one bad bike ride away. Red Rover, Red Rover. So you guys are awesome. Thank you so much.